Stand up, football fans. I am back at it. I'm going to be doing my first ever weekly podcast. I'm excited to get this up and running. I'm going to be covering the NFL. I'll be covering other sports in season, but obviously right now the NFL is on the forefront. Everybody knows me as a New York Giants fan, and this is kind of an opportunity for me to talk more broad NFL. Of course, I'll touch on the Giants. I'll touch on all the hot stories around the league. And we're going to start with Antonio Brown. I mean, this guy is just a complete mess. He really is. And part of me wonders, is this the CTE? Or is this just the way this guy has always been? And Mike Tomlin, was able to keep it under wraps in Pittsburgh, before, it leaked out that he was throwing Ben Roethlisberger under the bus and was acting like a complete and utter lunatic. An asshole. I mean, to be quite frank, for lack of a better word. And they trade him off to the Bills, and then Brown says he doesn't want to go play there. He doesn't like the cold weather, which, it probably would have been the best situation. I said that when they made that trade. I looked at the Bills roster. I said, this team is, they're building the right way. They've now fixed that offensive line. They signed all those players in free agency. They added a couple of nice weapons in the receiving corps. And Antonio Brown probably would have put them over the top to potentially contend in that AFC East. Of course, they've come out. They're up to a 3-0 start. Now, let's be fair. They haven't beaten world beaters, but we'll get into the Bills in a little bit. But Brown turns that trade down. Ends up wanting to go to the Raiders, who are in a much worse situation. I mean, they just were. A team with no defense. You got an okay quarterback at best in Derek Carr. And he ends up going there. Works his way up the team there with all the nonsense he does there with the foot and everything else. And he gets himself kicked off the Raiders. What a Looney Tune this guy is. And then the Raiders have to release him. And he ends up with the New England Patriots. Of all teams, right? As if they needed any more help. I mean, this team goes to the Super Bowl every freaking year. And they get this guy for free. They pick him up off the scrap heap. And then news comes out, with the text messages with this woman. And you're allowed to have your own thoughts on this. Maybe she was a woman looking for money and she saw an opportunity. Being that Antonio Brown's acting like an absolute lunatic. Or maybe she wasn't, and Antonio Brown, sent what many people said were threatening text messages. I didn't see too many threats in that, but he did get a little aggressive. It is what it is. The Patriots decide they don't want to deal with it, and they release AB. So now AB, he's on the open market. Some teams, supposedly, as recently as 2 days ago, said that they were interested, but they wanted to see how the legal proceedings were going with Antonio Brown. They wanted to know where he stood there before they went and offered him a contract. Now, those teams didn't come out, but I'm sure there was a handful of teams that would take on the most talented receiver in football. I mean, after all, Antonio Brown had a touchdown his first game with the Patriots, and I mean, he had, 6 straight 100-catch seasons? The record for a career is 7, not straight, overall. 7 100-catch seasons for a career is the record, and Brown was going to tie that this year, and he was probably going to eventually break it. I mean, you want to talk about consistency on the football field. He's anything but consistent off of it. But on the football field, as consistent as they come. And it's just a sad turn of events. And then yesterday, Brown comes out, after he lost, $20, $30 million in guaranteed money, he comes out and announces his retirement via Twitter from the NFL. I emphasize NFL. Because maybe he gets an opportunity in the XFL. Maybe he, changes his mind, comes back to the NFL. All very likely and possible, being that he's still only, 31 years old, maybe 32. He's still got at least 3-4 years left in him. And he's turned down a lot of money. Even after all the nonsense he pulled, the Patriots offered him a big contract. I think he was, 16, 17 million, something like that. And if he goes out and proves himself this year, he breaks the bank again. But he can't keep his nose out of trouble. I mean, what is this guy doing? Absolute insanity. And like I said, I would have thought a team would have given him an offer. I really did. Really did. Really thought somebody would have given him an offer, even with all the bullshit. Because we've seen so many times, if the talent is worth the headache, the team will take it on. Everybody seems to forget about Michael Vick. I mean, Michael Vick's electrocuting dogs. He's killing puppies. He goes to prison. Teams gave him chances. I mean, the Eagles gave him a chance because they saw the talent. Vick came out of prison. He had an unbelievable year in that Andy Reid offense. Almost led him to a Super Bowl. A phenomenal year. One of the best years I've ever seen a quarterback have. And Brown would have been worth the headache for some teams, no doubt about it. Certain players, it's not worth the headache. I'm not saying Tim Tebow's a bad guy, But everybody knows the people who worship Tim Tebow like he's God himself. And he wasn't worth the headache. Teams didn't want to take it on because he's a backup quarterback. He just is. Same thing with Colin Kaepernick. Colin Kaepernick would have been a starter. He was blackballed. No way around that. He was blackballed. Anybody who says otherwise is full of shit. But Kaepernick was, a below average starter. And nobody wanted to take on that burden, of what would have came with it with the kneeling and everything else. The media hit that it would have brought. But as far as Brown goes, they would have taken it on. Somebody would have taken it on. But now this guy comes out and he says he's going to retire. I don't get it. I mean, if that was me, and I love playing the sport and I'm as good as he is, and who knows, maybe he doesn't love playing the sport, but either way, you're turning down millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. There's something wrong with this guy. I don't know if it's CTE. I don't know if he's always been this way, and, it's kind of just leaking out now. But Antonio Brown, I wish you the best of luck, buddy. But it doesn't appear you'll be doing it in an NFL uniform anytime soon. As he announces his retirement yesterday. Just crazy. Crazy stuff. But then, now we're going to take a look around the league. And right now in the NFL, there are 7 unbeaten teams through week 3. And that seems, I didn't go back and look at the history, but 7 unbeaten teams through week 3 seems like a pretty high number. And then we'll look at the teams and we'll see, who's contenders, who's pretenders. But you got the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, and the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC. And then in the NFC, you've got the Cowboys. You've got the Green Bay Packers. The Lions. All right, I forgot the Lions, right? Because they have a tie. So technically 8 unbeaten teams. They have a tie. The Lions at 2-0-1. The Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers at 3-0. So you got 8 technically unbeaten teams. The Lions with a tie. And we'll start from the top. The Buffalo Bills 3-0. But let's really examine those wins. I mean, and I like the Buffalo Bills. I picked the Buffalo Bills to go to the playoffs before the year started. I'm sticking with it. Great defense. They have a plus 19 differential, so they've narrowly won some of these games. The Jets game, the Jets now are 0-3 at the basement. Sam Darnold obviously has a little bit to do with that, but I don't think they were beating the Patriots either way. I think they were going to be an 0-3 football team, as he went out and was kissing whoever he's kissing, getting mono. But the Bills took down the Jets week 1 after trailing 16-0. They come back. Overcome the 4 turnovers off the arm of Josh Allen, and, he fumbled it twice. Then they beat the Giants with their suspect defense, and we'll get into them in a bit. In a game in which they absolutely dominated the New York Giants. They absolutely beat the piss out of the Giants. And then this week, they beat the Bengals narrowly at home. So I'm still not fully bought into the Bills as far as being a real contender. And this week, we're going to get a real test. As they take on the New England Patriots at home. I'm not expecting a win. I mean, the Patriots look unbelievable. I mean, you want to talk about a team that looks sound. Sound as a pound. The New England Patriots look unbelievable. But if they could go toe-to-toe with the Pats at home, keep it close till the latter stages of the fourth quarter, I'll believe in them. And you look at their upcoming schedule. After that, they're at the Titans. Won't be the easiest of games, but it's a game they certainly can win. The Titans are up and down this year. Then they got the Dolphins at home. I mean, that's a bye. That's their first bye week. You want to talk about a team that's trash? I was shocked yesterday. Cowboys at the half, they almost were trailing. I think the Dolphins fumbled at the Cowboys 6-yard line before the end of the half, and then the Cowboys come out and they beat the ever-living piss out of them. I think they won 30-6. But, the Dolphins suck. So, the Bills got a favorable schedule after that Patriots game. Those are 2 games they could win there, and then they'll take it step by step. But I'm still not fully bought into them. Yes, they have a strong defense, and I think they'll be at least an 8-win team. And definitely could be a playoff contender. But I got to see a little more. I mean, so far, let's be fair. You've beaten 3 teams without a win. Well, the Giants got a win yesterday, but going into yesterday. So the Bills, they're still on the fence for me as far as a real contender, in terms of competing to do real damage. The Patriots, however, we'll go to the Patriots. Now, 3-0, this team is just, they're reminiscent of the 2007 Patriots, the way they're going out there and dominating football teams. I mean, they go out there, first game of the year, they play the Pittsburgh Steelers on primetime. And I say to myself, I think this is going to be a good game. Matter of fact, a lot of people picked the Steelers to win. I didn't pick that in New England, but it was like a 4.5, 5-point spread, whatever it was. And I thought it'd be close. They beat them by 30 points. Then they beat the Dolphins, the first bye week in Miami, 43-0, avenging the miracle the year prior, in which the Dolphins had that miracle play at the end of the game. And then they beat the Jets yesterday 30-14. It wasn't as close as the score The backup quarterback comes in for Brady, throws a pick six. Otherwise, that game would have been a 20-plus point deficit. So, I mean, so far, look at their combined score. They've given up 17 points, and they've scored what? 106. 106 to 17. They are outscoring their opponents. Now, granted, the Jets and Dolphins, not world beaters, and they'll get more of a test here these next 2 weeks on the road at the Bills, at the Redskins. But you look at this Patriots schedule. They're going to beat the Bills, more than likely. Then they got the Redskins on the road. They should win that. They should beat the Giants at home, as much as I hate to say it. At the Jets, they should beat. Browns at home, they should beat. They should start out 8-0. Then they get a test, right? They got at the Ravens, at the Eagles, Cowboys, at the Texans, Chiefs for a 5-game stretch. That will be hard to keep up that unbeaten streak. Those are some good teams. You got 3 road games in that stretch, 2 of which are primetime. So we'll get to see. But this team's definitely going to win the East, and they're probably going to get a first-round bye. I mean, their schedule just breaks down beautifully. And even in that tough 5-game stretch, at worst, I see a 3-2 stretch. And worst I see the Patriots going this year is probably 13-3, as long as they remain healthy. And I mean, it's the Patriots' way of doing things. They are spreading the ball around every week, and it's a new guy. And Brady is Brady. You know, every year it seems like people are ready to get off the Brady train. You know, because he's getting older. The guy's a machine. He goes into the special teams workout. He don't care. He just wants to win football games. He is a competitor. I mean, what are you doing in special teams workouts? But he's a competitor. Hardest worker I've ever seen play the sport of football. And this year so far, 68% completion percentage, 911 yards, 7 touchdowns, no picks, and he's spreading the ball around. And, you know, I mean, the running backs, Burkhead, Michelle, splitting the work there. The receivers, he's got 4 players with over 100 receiving yards through week 3. They're spreading it around. Edelman, Dorsett, Gordon, and Burkhead, all with over 100 yards receiving. I mean, you never know who to game plan for with this team, and that's what the magic is of Belichick and Brady. I mean, Belichick is just a genius in the defense. I mean, regardless of opponent, only giving up, 17 points? And not really. They gave up 10, because one was a pick 6. The defense has only surrendered 1 touchdown through the first 3 weeks of the season. Everybody's talking about the offense. This Patriots team, even without Antonio Brown, is scary. They are scary. They're the clear-cut favorites to win again. I hate saying it, but it's true. And then you go down the list. I mean, and that's kind of what differentiates them, in my opinion, from the Kansas City Chiefs. So the Kansas City Chiefs, a beautiful win yesterday, and they're off to a nice 3-0 start. You know, one of the other unbeaten teams. And, you know, they go out there, they beat the Ravens. And the Ravens surprised me a bit this year. I didn't expect Lamar Jackson to look as good as he did the first 3 weeks. Now, I know, you know, yesterday kind of tailed off a little bit, but, you know, they were able to get some points late to make it somewhat close. They only lose by 5. But, yeah, I mean, they got some impressive wins so far, the Chiefs. Not the world beaters, but they start their first 2 games on the road at the Jaguars. They win by 14, then they win in Oakland. Oakland was coming off a nice win week 1. They beat up on them. 28-10, and then they beat the Ravens. The Ravens were coming in hot. You know, a lot of people buying into them, potential AFC North champions, and they're probably still the favorites the way the Browns have looked. Pittsburgh, obviously, the banged-up Ben Roethlisberger, off to an 0-3 start. So the Ravens are looking decent there in the North. I think it's a 2-team race right now between them and the Browns. We'll see how that works out. But the Browns are paper champions. I've said it all year. I said it at the beginning of the year. I said they're still young. They're unproven. I do think Myles Garrett will win Defensive Player of the Year. That was my preseason prediction. He's off to a great start. I still like Mayfield. I don't like him as a person, but as a football player, he's great. Don't like how he attacked my Giants. But I still think he's a good player. But I just think they're inexperienced. I don't see them doing any real damage this year. And I think the Ravens are the favorites there. Maybe the Browns sneak in as a wild card, but I don't view them as a viable threat in the AFC. But the Chiefs, you look at their upcoming schedule: at the Lions, Colts, Texans, home at the Broncos, Packers, Vikings. They got some tough games coming up, and we'll see where they stand. The defense still a question, right? They've given up 26 to the Jaguars, 28 to the Ravens. That's always going to be the question with this team. But in terms of offensive firepower, I mean, nobody's got more. I mean, they put up 28, 40, and 33 their first 3 games. And Mahomes already has, you know, right under 1,200 yards passing with 10 touchdowns. I mean, this kid, he might have back-to-back MVP performances. He's special talent. He really is a special talent. 72% completion. I mean, the Andy Reid offense is gorgeous, and Pat Mahomes is using it to the best of his advantage. He's unbelievable. McCoy, of course, as I knew, you know, having a bounce-back year there. in the Andy Reid offense, and Watkins has been great. Kelsey, they're getting production from everybody. We were talking about Brady with 4 100-yard receivers. This guy has got 3 guys over 200. He's got 4 of 158. It's incredible. And then no-name guys. DeMarcus Robinson, Sammy Watkins. I mean, it's unbelievable what this guy's done so far this year with the it doesn't matter. Andy Reid is a brilliant offensive mind. He always gets the most out of his team. He really does, and that's why Kansas City is where they are. Just a great football team, and Andy Reid, to me, is arguably the greatest coach to ever coach to not win a Super Bowl. Every year, it doesn't matter who's on his team. He's always getting you 11 wins plus, 10 wins plus. You're always going to be a contender, but he can't ever get you over the hump. And maybe this year he does. I mean, the Chiefs are certainly a contender. Right now, looking at the AFC, I mean, the Bills and them are the clear-cut favorites to come out of that conference. One team I'm going to tell you don't sleep on. Do not sleep on the Indianapolis Colts. And I said that after Luck retired. Everybody, and I'm not saying it's a Super Bowl, but this is a team that can still make the playoffs. And I said that after Luck went down. I said, don't sleep on this team. Don't sleep on this team because they still have a really good offensive line. They have an underrated defense. And they're finding ways to get it done. Yes, they've changed their identity with Brissett at quarterback. They're pounding the rock. I mean, Marlon Mack has 300 yards on the ground. He's on pace for 1,600 yards. And, and this offensive line is terrific. Brissett has been efficient. He's only turned the ball over once, 7 touchdowns through 3 games, 646 yards on the air. But the bread and butter of this offense now is Marlon Mack. They've pounded the rock. 91 carries as a team through their first 3 games, and that's why they're winning the time of possession. They have some impressive wins. They beat the Falcons this week, a team everybody was all hyped up after they beat the Eagles. They're like, oh, they'll go in Indianapolis with no problem. Nah, Colts beat them. They win in Tennessee the week before, and they almost win in L.A. First week of the year, they lose, I think it was in overtime, if I'm not mistaken, 30-24. They should win this week. They should get the 3-1 home against the Raiders, and then, it gets a little challenging there at Kansas City. Should be a great game there. Texans home, Broncos home, but that's the Colts' upcoming schedule. So don't sleep on that team. Obviously the Texans are the favorite there, but don't sleep on that team to contend there in the South. But that's pretty much the AFC wrap up there. I view the Patriots and the Chiefs as the clear-cut favorites in that conference. The Chargers are surprising 1-2. I still think they'll bounce back and contend for a wild card, but I think the Chiefs run away with the West Division. I see it as a 2-team race there as far as who's coming out. I see a rematch in the AFC Championship this year. I really do. 2 great football teams over there, though, in the AFC, and 2 of the better teams in the league. Now in the NFC, we're going to break down the contenders, the pretenders. And I told everybody going into the year, a lot of people laughed at me. They said, Eagles. Eagles are this world beaters. They're going to do it. They're going to go 12-4, 13-3. Lord Brunson, not just him, all the Eagles YouTubers running their mouth. And now they're going to come up with the excuses, injury this, injury that, bullshit this, bullshit that. No. Your team was overrated from the start. All I heard is Jordan Howard this, Jordan Howard that. Well, now you're 1-2. You're tied with the New York Giants. And I'm going to be honest with you, Eagles fans, you'll probably bounce back. You'll have a season of it. But you're going to be 1-3. You're going to lose to Aaron Rodgers. The division is over. Cowboys are going to run away with this division. And I don't even think the Cowboys are an unbelievable football team, but they're a very good football team. And yeah, Packers are a better team than you. I said it from the beginning of the year. I got laughed at for that. People said, Bears are going to win that division, hands down. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think you got a motivated Packers team. You got an improved defense over there, and we're going to get into them in a bit. But the Eagles are in trouble, guys. I see them losing in Lambeau. They'll beat the Jets. They'll get to 2-3. They're not going to win all 3 road games in a row after that. At Minnesota, at the Cowboys, and at the Bills, you're talking about teams that are with a combined record of 8-1 right now. You'll be lucky to take 2 out of 3 there. I think 1 out of 3. So if you take 1 out of 3, you'd be what? 2-3, 3-5 through 8 games. Now I'm not going to say you can't overcome that. You did it last year, but the schedule doesn't let up after that. Home against the Bears, home against the Patriots, home against the Seahawks. Eagles fans, wake up. Wake up. It ain't going to be this runaway this year for you guys. You could book that. You'll be lucky to make the playoffs. Not a big fan of the Eagles. Wasn't before the year started. Still not. Overrated football team. Overrated by their fan base. I'm sorry. I'm an honest guy. I love a lot of my Eagles subscribers. John Letourneau. A bunch of great Eagles subscribers. But I got to tell it how it is. Philly 500 is adorable. But, Yeah, Eagles are overhyped. Cowboys, on the other hand, Cowboys 3-0. But again, let's look at what the 3-0 really is. They beat up a young secondary in the New York Giants where they made Dak Prescott look like he was the Dalai Lama. He's unbelievable. And the Cowboys beat up on the Giants, and then they beat the Redskins by 10. And this week they showed good resiliency. They played a horrible first half. Dak was, I think, 45% at the half. Bounces back, has a good second half. Cowboys got a good football team. They got a very good football team. I'm not going to deny that. That's why I picked them to win the division at the beginning of the year. And Dak Prescott is off to a good start. Great start. 920 yards. He's doing his job. 9 touchdowns, 2 picks. But he's been good. With this new offensive system, that they've implemented with the young OC over there. They a lot of pre-shift motion. We saw it as Giants fans. They tore us to shreds. Do I think they take a little step back? Do I think they get a little reality? Does reality set in a little bit here these next couple weeks? Yeah. Do I think the Cowboys are this otherworldly team? No. I think they're a very good team. But, let's be fair. You beat the Giants. You won at the Redskins. You beat the Dolphins. I mean, let's be real. Those teams' combined record is 1-8. And you had a bad first half against the Dolphins this week. But you're still a very good team. You have one, maybe the best, top 5 offensive line for sure in the sport. You got a great running back in Zeke. Zach's improved. You have a good offensive system. You're going to contend in the NFC. I hate saying that, but it's the truth. And you're going to get a good test here these next 2 games. But at New Orleans without Breeze, but New Orleans, I'm going to get into them in a little bit. They're still going to contend. I picked them to win this week. With Bridgewater at quarterback, they can still win football games because they have a good team. People don't realize this about Drew Brees. And I love Drew Brees, okay? I love him. Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks in the sport. One of the best top 10 quarterbacks of all time. Now, the dome didn't hurt him. Let's be real here, guys. I mean, really. Yeah, I think his career QB rating outside of the dome is 91. In the dome, it's like 108 or whatever it is. Obviously the dome helped him, and Sean Payton helped him. Great system. But you can say that about a lot of great quarterbacks. Tom Brady, Joe Montana being 2 of them. But a phenomenal quarterback. But these last 2 years, let's be real here. Drew Brees has been a glorified game manager. They've become much more of a running football team. They've established that identity. A ground and pound team. They've improved the defense. And they still have a great defense. They still have a great ground game. And they showed that yesterday. And I think they'll show it again next week against the Cowboys. That game's not going to be easy, Cowboy fans. I'm telling you right now. In New Orleans, they're going to bring the dogs. No one's going to win that football game. I'm picking them right now. I got the Cowboys dropping to 3-1. Then they got the Packers at home. That should be an interesting game. A game in which the Cowboys should win. They're at home. But I love the Packers this year. I think that'll be a great game. But I'm not giving up on New Orleans yet. They're still very much a Super Bowl contender. I think Bridgewater could hold the fort there until Breeze gets back, hold them in contention, and still win that NFC South. I don't expect home field throughout, though, which is very important for that Saints team. A team that's gotten screwed the last 2 years, haven't they? I mean, my God. But if you look at the Saints schedule, briefly, now that we're talking about them, Bucks at home after the Cowboys, they should win. If they could win this Cowboys game, they're going to be in really good shape. They really are. Because you got the Bucks at home, at the Jaguars, still a winnable game. At the Bears will be tough. Cardinals home. Falcons home. That's probably their schedule remaining before Breeze hopefully comes back. You look at that, at worst, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The next 6 games, I think at worst 3-3, which would still put you at 5-4 with Breeze returning for the home stretch. So I really do think the Saints will still be okay. I think they'll still win that South or at least get a wild card spot. But the Breeze injury is probably going to hurt you guys in terms of getting that first round bye, which is so imperative because you guys are a different team in the Superdome. You guys were, I think, 7-1 last year. Breeze had 21 touchdowns at 1 pick, and on the road he was an average quarterback. So very important for you guys to get that home field. And unfortunately for you guys, I don't know if you're going to get that or even a first round bye after the Breeze injury. But I still think you're a real football team and a team you don't want to see come playoff time. Still a really good team over there. The Giants, we'll talk briefly about my team. Giants, the defense is still, let's be real. Defense is still complete and utter trash. You want to talk about a trash bag. They are a trash football team, right? But, you know what? Got to be happy, right? Daniel Jones goes out there, has one of the best debuts in the history of football. He's the first quarterback ever with 300 yards passing, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 touchdowns on the air, ever. Not in a debut, just as a rookie in general. You couldn't have asked for a better debut performance for Daniel Jones. The defense is awful. Second half, just like last week, they did stiffen up. They played better, right? They only surrendered a field goal. in the second. Should have been 2. They missed a 34-yard field goal, but the defense played much better. We did get 4 sacks. We got pressure on the quarterback. Janoris Jenkins, shut your mouth. I mean, really, you got lit up like a Christmas tree. Gave up 200 yards almost. To a good receiver nonetheless. But I mean, Mike Evans, I think he had like 100 yards receiving in his first 2 games. I mean, Double J, wake up, baby Jack Rabbit. I mean, you got absolutely lit up in this game. But as a Giants fan, you got to be happy with the future. Barkley, of course, goes down. That's horrible. Next week, I think we still have a chance, even without Barkley, home against the Redskins. I think that's a very winnable game. And then we'll see what we can do against the Vikings. But it's one game at a time. Schedule, they gotta win the next 2, realistically, if we want a real shot to contend this year, to do anything. And it's not going to be easy. But nevertheless, very happy with what Daniel Jones did yesterday. And looks like he could be the guy going forward. So just encouraging news as a Giants fan yesterday. Was happy for him to get that win, and Pat Shurmur. Get a little pressure off the team there. But good start. Good start to Daniel Jones' career as far as the Giants go. And they're tied with the Eagles, the world beaters. The Green Bay Packers, the NFC North is tough. The Bears, I think, are going to win tonight, Monday Night Football. I think they get the 2-1. I think the Vikings get the 2. I think the Vikings are at 2-1. Obviously, the Lions are 2-0-1, and the Packers are 3-0. That is a tough division. The Packers do have 2 divisional wins, which is important. But all these teams are good. They're all good. They all could win any division if they were in another one. It's a great division. It really is. And, the Vikings are doing well. They're plus 31, even though they're 2-1. The Lions playing some tight football games, but they're finding ways to win. They should be 3-0. They blew that game against the Cardinals. They had a nice win last week against the Chargers. Then they go and beat the Eagles. The Lions look legit. I mean, they have a strong defense. The offense has been but they're a good football team. They really are. We'll see how they contend in this division because this is a tough division, but great start for the Lions and the Packers. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl. I'm sticking with it. And they've been very impressive. Now, Aaron Rodgers isn't lighting up the scoreboard. He's not putting up these otherworldly stats, but they're finding ways to win games with that defense, and that's all you want if you're a Packers fan. I mean, they go into Chicago. Defense plays out of their mind. And just great offseason pickups by this team. Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith. I mean, you look at the box score. I mean, nobody's blowing you out of the water, but they got a good defense. They got a good defense, and when you give Aaron Rodgers, who I think is a very motivated quarterback this year, a good defense, well, you're going to win football games. You just are. And Rodgers, 4 touchdowns through his first 3 games, 642 yards, but he's been consistent. Like I said, going up against very good defenses. He's not putting up otherworldly stats. But the most important stat for Rodgers and the Packers, W's. And Rodgers is a bad man. You don't want to see him come playoff time, trust me. As far as the running game goes, Aaron Jones has been solid. They can't get much going on the run in terms of efficiency. Only averaging 3.4 yards a carry. Now, like I said, they've gone up against phenomenal defenses. But they're finding ways to win games. Devontae Adams off to a great start, almost 200 yards. Valdez Scantling with 170 yards in the air. So they're getting it done on the offense. Not otherworldly, but where they're really excelling is on the defensive end. It's been incredible. They have 4 interceptions already. Preston Smith with one of them. They've recovered 4 fumbles. So, I mean, the turnover differential has been great for this football team. Preston Smith, they acquired this guy off the scrap heap. Preston and Zadarius Smith, through the first 3 games, have combined for 7.5 sacks. Rashawn Gary, the rookie, has 1. The defense is night and day. And the Packers are a real football team. Make no mistakes about it. I expect them to keep this up here for the rest of the season and possibly get a first-round bye. Love the Packers going forward. Just love them. Love them. Love them. The Lions, we'll see. We'll see if they hold up. And the Bears, I don't fully believe in the Bears. I never did. It's very rare that you see a team that relies as much on their defense as the Bears do have back-to-back great years. I mean, really, think about it. Think about it. It's rare, The Ravens, maybe. They did it a few times, where they relied on that defense back in the mid-2000s, early 2000s. But it's rare. It really is. Usually you need a decent offense, and right now the Bears aren't getting it. We'll see how they bounce back against the Redskins tonight, though. NFC South, I don't really believe in anybody but the Saints. The Bucs yesterday, maybe they make it a little bit interesting with Breeze out, but the only real threat in that conference, in that division, rather to come out of the conference is the Saints. So, I mean, in terms of real teams, so far there's 3. You got the Cowboys, you got the Packers, in my opinion, the Saints, Maybe the Bears, if they get the offense going, because they do have a great defense. And then in the West, I mean the Rams, 3-0. The Niners, 3-0. The Seahawks, I called it, and the Cardinals are the Cardinals, but everybody's all over the Seahawks, right? The 2-0 start. I look at their team. I'm like, you won 2 games by a combined 3 points against trash. I mean, Roethlisberger's out when you played the Steelers. You beat the Bengals at home by 1. Seahawks are a fake football team. I said that, and they go out there, they lay an egg, and they lose this week in a game in which most people had them winning. I didn't like them this week. I didn't like them. I knew the Saints were going to still be good enough to beat them, even with it being on the road in Seattle. Seattle is not that good of a football team. They overachieved last year, and maybe they'll overachieve this year, but I don't believe in that team. I just don't. Now, they're going to win next week probably in Arizona. They'll lose to the Rams at home, I think. The Rams are a real football team. Coming into the year, a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people are saying Super Bowl hangover, right? His team's not real. They'll go 9-7. They're not winning the West. Well, they're 3-0. And all this team does is win football games. And Goff's not even off to a great start. He's just not. And they're still finding ways to win football games. This defense is legit. I love this team. They're a clear threat to repeat as NFC champions. They just are. Wake up and smell the coffee if you're down on the Rams. They won in Carolina. They win in Cleveland. And they're just a good football team. They're a good football team. They beat the Saints at home 27-9. I like them. I like the Rams. Are the 49ers for real? That's the real question here. Are the 49ers for real? And we're going to find out this week, and it's going to be a great, great game. I'm looking forward to it as the Rams take on the 49ers. The Rams will be at home. Both teams are 3-0 coming in. And that's the second 3-0 matchup. I believe I said the Bills are playing the Patriots. And I think a lot of people probably still think the 49ers are a bit of pretenders. They're a good football team, make no mistakes about it, but are they a real 3-0 football team? Garoppolo is throwing a lot of picks. He's thrown 4. Granted, Goff's thrown 3. And the 49ers have not beaten, the best of the best. Let's be real here. They've beaten up on some crappy football teams. So this week, it's going to go a long way to telling me what the 49ers are. And, and I think it'll cement most people's opinions on the Rams if they could win that football game. So that'd be a great game. That's probably the game of the week this week. Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at the NFC, I think there's a couple teams that I think are definite contenders. The Rams being one of them. I still consider the Saints as long as they could tread water until Breeze gets back. The Cowboys are real. The Packers are real, in my opinion. Maybe the Bears if they could sort out that offense. Maybe the Niners if they're for real. I still got to fully believe in them. And yeah, so that's the roundabout of the NFL right now, In terms of the storylines, Mahomes is phenomenal. We touched on that earlier. The Colts have reestablished that identity, which I'm glad to see behind that offensive line. Lamar Jackson takes a little bit of a step back, but that guy is still putting on a marvelous performance so far this year through the first 3 weeks. And we'll see where the rest of it goes, guys. But just a great week 3 of football. I'm looking forward to the rest of the season, seeing how it plays out. New England is still going to stampede through the league. I mean, they really are. And it'll be interesting to see if they go 16-0 this year. And we're going to find out as the season goes along who's the pretenders, who's the contenders. And I'm looking forward to it every step of the way. I hope you guys enjoyed my first podcast. Kept it a little short, 33, 34 minutes. We'll be recapping the NFL next week, and I'm looking forward to it. But as always, if you liked what you heard, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.